Hello, this is Brooke Buffington at the Porter Family Professional Development Center. Our center is located in the Corey School of Business on the first floor, and we are here to help you with everything that has to do with your professional development. So we hope that you'll come and see us and talk about resumes as well as other facets of your professional development and your future career. Today we're going to talk about resumes, so I'm going to turn off my video so that it doesn't distract you, and we're going to focus on the PowerPoint in front of us. So resumes, as you know, are the first document that you need to have ready when you begin to apply for internships or full-time jobs or even on-campus opportunities. The first thing I want to note is that there's not one perfect way to write a resume. Each of you is unique and has unique experiences and skills that you're bringing to the table for an employer. So you want to not use somebody else's resume as your guide. We can use some formats that look good, that are consistent, and have worked well for entry-level positions or undergraduate students, but there's not one perfect way to write a resume. So that's why it's important for you to come in once you have a draft of your resume together, so we can make sure that your resume uniquely speaks to you and what you have to offer an employer. So let's talk about some of those things that make a good first draft of a resume. As you'll see on the right-hand side is a sample of a resume format that is nice and clean. All of the bullet points are lined up on the left side of the page. The experiences are consistent in how they're delivered, as well as the education. Overall, it has a nice visual appeal, which you'll see is the second bullet point there. And it provides that visual appeal, allows you to get the information across quickly. Resumes need to be correct. I've spoken with employers when they look at resumes where if there is a mistake on the resume or misspellings throughout the resume, that is a reflection of the work that you are going to do for that organization, and therefore is not a good reflection of you and probably would not secure you an interview. So you want to make sure that you get a second pair of eyes on your resume, make sure that you double check the grammar, double check the spelling, and make sure everything is correct in the document. It needs to be true. Resumes are a jumping off point for future conversations, for interviews. You need to be comfortable answering questions about anything that is on your resume. So don't oversell anything on your resume. Don't put untrue information on your resume, because you're going to be asked about that information, and you don't want to have to lie in a job interview or lie to an employer. That would just be a really bad situation to put yourself in. They also need to be easy to read. Most employers look at a resume for about 30 seconds, as you can see right here, to catch a reader's attention, to decide whether or not they want to move you on to the next round, whether that's a first round interview through a pre-recorded video interview or a phone interview. You have 30 seconds for them to say, yes, this looks like a good resume, I want to read more, or no, somebody hasn't put the time and effort needed into this resume, I'm going to pass on this applicant. So I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to look at this resume here, which is a sample resume, and gather as much information as possible that you can from this resume. All right, so that's about 20 seconds. What you might have gathered in that is that, for me, visual appeal is off on this. The bullet points jump from one side maybe to another, slightly different. There's not a consistent format. You'll see the dates on the right-hand side wave or move down the page rather than being into a nice, consistent line. And overall, it just doesn't get a lot of information across. The bullet points are really short. I don't have a lot of detail to learn about what this student has to offer. Let's give about 20 seconds to look at this resume. What you'll see in this resume is those bullet points are clean. Everything is consistent down that left-hand side of the page. The dates and locations on the right-hand side of the page are consistent as well. The education section is very clear. I can tell what degree the student is seeking, when they're planning on graduating. They've done a study abroad experience. I've seen some coursework they've taken. And most importantly, I've seen the experience, whether it's an internship or a part-time job or an on-campus job. And those bullet points are a lot more robust. You'll see the shadow of the CEO to over 50 client meetings, assisting in establishing 36 new customers. As business students, obviously, we look at numbers a great deal, whether we're taking the principles of finance class or the entry-level accounting class. The recruiters within business like to see numbers as well. So one of the things that I'm going to speak about a little bit later is if you can add numbers into your bullet points, please do. It helps to make those bullet points stand out. It helps me to quantify what you've done and gives me a better overall impression. You'll see the longer bullet points obviously give much more content and allow me to better understand who this applicant is and what they have to offer. I'm much more likely to give this applicant a chance to do an interview versus the one that we looked at before this one. So how your resume, one of the second resumes that we looked at versus one of the first. One of the first things I'm going to tell you is please do not use a Word template or any type of template. I'm actually currently working with a student who used some online template for their resume and now is not able to edit that template, is not able to add in new information, and the template has gone over onto 2 pages and it's very hard to work with. Templates, I know that they look pretty and they make things a little bit faster and easier, but in the long run, build your resume yourself within a Google Doc or within a Word, because you're going to have a lot more agility over moving things around and making the resume your own. So as a person who formerly used to recruit for companies, I can read a Word template a mile away. We can see it coming, and it doesn't make a great overall impression. Please don't use any type of template. Please build your resume. We have resume samples on the Porter Center website that you can use to help you build your first document. Sections. Every resume, as I said, is different. Every resume is going to have a different section. You'll see on this page alone a resume that might be more creative. Rob Granville there, more creative in structure. This would be great if you're a marketing major that's looking to go into a creative job or some type of design job with a advertising firm. And then you'll see over on the other side, Frank's resume is much more traditional in scope, and that would fit well with somebody who's wanting to go into more traditional business, such as an accounting or finance major. So all different types of sections here. You'll see an education section, an experience section for Frank's. For Rob's over there, it has a skills section, which highlights the different levels that he has different skills. So a couple of sections that we would recommend considering depending on your experiences. You don't need to use all of these sections. You might pick and choose which ones are most relevant to you. The one thing that all of you will have at the top is an education section. As you progress in your career, you'll move that education section to the bottom of the resume. But for right now, as an undergraduate student who is pursuing a degree, that is the thing you're focused on most. And so it needs to be at the top of your resume. That education section is going to be at the top. We'll talk about what's involved in it in just a second. After that, you might do a relevant coursework section because it aligns with the education really well. In that relevant coursework, don't put the course numbers like Business 381, BUS 381. That doesn't mean anything to an employer because they're not within the Elon bubble. You're going to want to write what the course name is so that the employer can glean what you may have learned in that course. The professional experience section, you'll see I have an asterisk by that. It could be a section unto itself, or if you want to further define, which is great, you could call it internship experience, work experience as you progress in your degree and become get more experiences under your belt in your industry of choice. You could even say marketing experience or finance experience, being very specific into the experiences that you have within that industry. You don't want to have a section that just has one experience. Ideally, it needs to have 2 or more to warrant a section. For those of you who are involved on campus or have leadership roles on campus, you could put campus and community involvement. That's for volunteer experiences, student organizations that you might be a part of. You could also have a leadership section if maybe you have a bunch of leadership roles on campus or off campus. Skills and languages, interests. I've seen at the very bottom of a student have a recent reading books they've read section, just because they tend to read a lot of books in the industry of choice, and that's a really interesting section for them to have. So really, there is no rules to the sections beyond that it needs to have good content under it. So you'll create your sections first, education section at the top. Let's say then you go on to the relevant coursework section, you go on to an internship experience section, and then maybe you do a campus and community involvement, followed by a skills section. In each of those sections, especially in the experience and then the campus and community involvement, you're going to list experiences, and those experiences are going to have bullet points under them. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of paying attention to your bullet points. Don't just writing a 4-word bullet point or a very brief overview of what you've done, but give the bullet point some heft to it, some weight to it, and obviously some information to it. So you want to first begin with an action verb. You're not going to start it like a sentence. You don't use any pronouns in your bullet points. You begin with an action verb, such as collaborated with or organized a. Another one that might be is you can use led if it's a leadership position. Led a group of 75 students in Elon-a-thon, raising over X amount of dollars. That would be a great bullet point. It starts with a nice action verb. It has a number in it to show how many students you helped to lead, and a number in it again showing the outcome of your leading, which was the money raised in that particular event. So you'll see in that second bullet point, quantify information if possible. This is particularly important if you're going into a field that is more analytical in scope, accounting, finance, sales. Those are very numbers-based fields. And so if you can have the numbers on your resume, it will make your resume stand out, and it will make your resume stronger. Highlight a key skill or learning. We're going to look at that in just a second. How do you highlight a learning in a bullet point without it going over 2 lines? One thing I do want you to know is we typically recommend not letting a bullet point go over 2 lines. It becomes more of a paragraph when it's inching into the 3 and 4 line territory. You want it to be quick, concise, but very informative. Okay, so for example, the first one is a bullet point I think was on the kind of not ideal resume that we looked at, where it said learn from the CEO, right? What did you learn? How did you learn? How did you engage, right? There's a lot of questions there that I have as somebody who might be reviewing your resume, and I don't have a lot of answers. A strong bullet point might look like shadowed, action verb, the CEO to over 50 client meetings, further developing consumer relations skills. So one, I've quantified it. I've given a number, 50 client meetings. That's a lot, right? That's a substantial amount. And what did I learn from her? What was my takeaway? My consumer relations skills. I built upon those skills. And if this is a job where it's going to be client facing or people focused, I now know as you have skills and you're demonstrating that you have those skills that could benefit my job. All right, so here's a resume to look at. Kind of puts everything together that we've talked about. The education at the top, really nice and clean. Put your major in full. I don't want to see B.S, B.A in marketing, right? I want you to spell it out. This is a formal document, so make sure you spell out the correct major that you are pursuing. Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and Marketing, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and Finance. Make sure there's a couple of degrees here in the Love School of Business that are different. They aren't all BSBAs. So follow up and make sure you're promoting the right degree on your resume. You can have your GPA on your resume if it's a 3.0 or above is typically what we suggest. If it is a 3.0, you'll want to keep it off the resume. If you've gone on a study abroad experience or a Study USA experience, absolutely put that on there. It's a great talking point for interviews and really makes an applicant stand out. We talked about making the experience section specific if you have enough experience to do that. So this student was a senior. They had a lot of marketing experience. They're obviously a marketing major. So we highlighted that they have both marketing and internship for that big middle section. And you'll see throughout these bullet points that they talk about social media and define the different social media accounts that they're comfortable with, the types of skills that they've gained in the jobs that they've had, and what they've become proficient in through doing those internships and those marketing experiences. We're going to dive a little bit more into a couple of these bullet points in a minute, but I just want to continue to walk through the resume. The skills section you'll see at the bottom, outline those skills. You don't have to be proficient in all of them, so you could even put some qualifiers in front of the skills. Let's say you are not necessarily proficient in Google Analytics, but you've been exposed to. You can put exposed to analytics or intermediate with X skill. That way it shows that you're not unfamiliar with the platform or unfamiliar with the technology, but you do have some exposure and some experience with the technology. A campus involvement under that, because this experience section is so robust, the campus involvement section didn't need bullet points. A student wanted to focus their time and the bulk of their resume on their experiences. And at the very bottom, you'll see an honors and awards section. So that's a nice outline of how a resume could look. It's got a good overall visual appeal to it. All the bullet points on the left-hand side are in line. The dates on the right-hand side are in line. And it served the student very well in applying for positions. So let's go a little bit closer into the experiences section. We had to kind of consolidate it to fit onto the slide here, but you'll see in an experience section, you want to have the name of the company that you had the experience with, or the organization you worked with, whether it was an on-campus organization or an internship, the title of the position. So you'll see here, digital marketing is the title of the position, where it was at, Elon, North Carolina, what the date is that you did that experience, January 2019 to present. If you're still doing the experience and still involved in the internship or still involved in the student organization, you're going to leave it to present. And then what you'll want to do, this one's a little bit off. So this one should say actually date January 2019 through January 2020, for example, because you'll see the action verbs are in the past tense. If the action verbs, if you are no longer in the experience or doing complete experience, you need to make sure your action verbs are in the past tense. If you are currently doing the experience, you can keep them in the present tense. So I like these bullet points because they give me skills that the student has that they'll be bringing to the job. I see a Google AdWords certification, and they even elaborate, showing advanced understanding of AdWords and effective management of AdWords campaigns. Right? Great information there for me to know that if this is a platform that I work on, or I expect this position to work on, this student has the skills to do that. Then I've got another one, participating in Google Online Marketing Challenge. What did that give them, right? It created a practical and successful ad campaign using optimization techniques to meet objectives of a business. So that's what I gathered from that particular experience, and that's what I'm bringing to you, ex-employer. Let's look at another one really quickly. Marketing intern, that's the title. Rollins Hill Business Association, that's the organization. Where was it at? Boston, Massachusetts, and here's the dates. You'll see here what they were responsible for. If you are in marketing and you're wanting to go into digital marketing, I encourage you to put the platforms that you've worked under. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. So that way you're not just pushing social media in a large scope, but defining out which social media platforms you're working in. You'll see they created a press release for 500 participants. It wasn't just going out to a small group, but a large group. And then they went even further, talking about the website, putting the website in there so that somebody could check out that website if they wanted, and gave further information about that work. So much more robust. They give us real information that makes me feel more confident about this applicant. We'll take a little bit of a closer look at the skills section. As you can see here, you could just put Microsoft Office, but let's say that part of that is you're really good at Microsoft Project and you want to further define it out. If you have your Excel certification, you want to include that here. If you have any other certifications that you've obtained, Google Analytics, Google AdWords, R programming, Tableau, any of those programs or platforms that you've gotten exposure to or you are comfortable with, you want to make sure you add them into the skills section. All right, so what can you do next? Next steps, I would say, is to take your resume, whether it's the resume that you use to apply to Elon University, or whether it's a first draft of a resume that you've created on your own, or one that you've worked on with our office. Review it, make sure all of your bullet points give as much information as possible, that they read succinctly but informatively. Make sure that print off your resume, lines up from a visual standpoint. And overall, know that this is a working document. Your resume is never done. You're going to be constantly updating it as you gain new experiences and gain new skills. And learning how to create, edit, and keep your resume up to date is a lifelong skill. This is something you're constantly going to be doing even as you move through your life as a professional. So it's important to learn this skill now. And we at the Porter Family Professional Development Center are happy to help you. Thank you so much. Come down and see us if you have any questions.